Today, I'm going to be talking about balance. How do we get balance? What systems of the body are responsible for balance? And by understanding which different systems we use for balance, the better we can address those systems that need more work. So we can have better balance and control when we dance and prevent injury. So there are three systems that we use. One, vision. Dancers use this like almost exclusively sometimes, and this is what gets us into trouble. So vision, we use proprioception, which is kinesthetic awareness goes along with that, the ability to know where we are in space. And then lastly, we have the vestibular system, which is the system of the inner ear. So let me talk about each of these individually. Let me talk about vision first. As dancers, we always were told to look into the mirror to watch our alignment since we were little kids. And so we can see in the mirror if we're not in good alignment, if our arm looks different than the teacher's arm or the person next to us. So we are taught to use our eyes. This comes especially true when it comes to balance. A lot of times dancers will be taking class, and when they're asked to let go of the bar, their eyes will fix on something in order to keep the balance. And if they turn to look at what the teacher's doing, you'll see them stumble out of it. Adagio, you frequently see people glazing their eyes into the mirror and slowly turning their head. We rely heavily on a focus point with our eyes, which is fine until performances happen. So in performances, we can have a very dark theater. All of a sudden the lights are off. So here I am in the dark, almost dark, assimilating what theater conditions are more like. So imagine in front of you, when the first time you've been on stage, you have this black void in front of you because they keep the house lights off, right? The audience is usually in the dark unless you're performing for a small group of theater in a museum or something. So usually you're in a theater and the house lights are dark and you rely on looking at an exit light, or sometimes there'll be lights somewhere in the theater that you can spot and keep an eye on to keep your bearings for where you are on the stage and also to help keep your balance. If you're in a dark theater, some theaters don't have exit lights or any lights whatsoever, you're dealing with this black void, and that can really throw dancers for a loop. Not only do we have to deal with the dark theater, the spotlight in the eye. So you might have a spotlight in your eye coming from somewhere out over the audience, a spotlight. Okay, so that is blinding you a bit. That's hard to deal with. That can throw your balance off. And then also the side lights, the lights from off stage. Once you face them, you see some dancers stumble as they go off into the wings because they have these bright lights in their face. Another element to keep in mind when you use your eyes for your balance and you have to focus on something to maintain it, what if you're maintaining the perfect balance in arabesque and all of a sudden someone runs in front of you as part of the choreography? If your eyes have something moving in front of you, that impairs your field of vision and offers a visual distraction. Visual distractions, that's choreography. We have people changing positions, weaving in and out, props maybe moving back and forth. So all that stuff going on in front of your eyes will help also impair your vision and make it more difficult for you to use your vision alone for balance. Proprioception, number 2. Proprioception is the other system we use. It's the nerve endings throughout the body. Our nervous system goes everywhere, to the tips of our fingers, the tips of our toes, and they all center at the brain. So the ability to know where your body is in space without looking at it. If I close my eyes and I bend my left elbow, I know my left elbow is maximally bent because I can feel it. That's proprioception. Kinesthesia is the awareness of movement. So the two go hand in hand. So the ability to know where your body is in space. If I bend sideways, my eyes are open, so I'm using my vision to some extent to know that I'm bending to the side. But if I take vision away and close my eyes and bend, I know that I'm bending to the side without looking at it. Now, a really good thing to do is in class, do a few tendu. Here's a good challenge for you. Do port-à-bras side, do 8 tendus back. I'm just going to do 4 for now, and 8 to the front. Just a 5th position, changing. Then do the same thing at tempo, eyes closed. So you can go and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. 8 to the back, 8 to the front. Then open your eyes and see where your body's at. 9 out of 10 students, after they finish that with eyes closed at tempo, will be facing another direction, or they will have traveled someplace else than staying in a straight line. So that's a good thing to kind of check how much you're using your vision versus how much you can feel where you are in space. The last system for balance is the most complicated to describe. It's tiny and it's located within your inner ear, and it's called your vestibular system. Your vestibular system has canals in it, and it has hair follicles that move. And when we are taught to spot, when we're little, we are taught to turn our head real quick so that our eyes are going to the same place to reduce the amount of dizziness we have when we turn. If I go ahead and make it a challenge for you, I want you to just pivot on one foot without spotting. Just turn your head with your body 5 times in one direction quick and 5 times in the other. You'll start to feel a little bit more dizziness without spotting. That dizziness is caused by your inner ear. So we train that in ballet. We do lots and lots of turns. We do turns from the corner. Sometimes if we've been off for a couple weeks, we'll do a turning combination. You might feel a little bit like wobbly afterwards. That's your vestibular system having a hard time catching up to what you're doing. So the vestibular system can be trained. Just like sailors on a ship get seasick. If you've ever been on a boat, there's that constant rocking. And then what you're seeing is everything rocking too, so you can't rely on your vision for stability. But over time, the more time people spend on a boat, the more they get accustomed to the rocking. Their vestibular system accommodates to that, so they don't get seasick anymore. So vestibular system is stimulated by us working it out. Turns are great for it. Roller coasters. Roller coasters are really great for the vestibular system because you get knocked around and you go upside down, and maybe the first time you do a roller coaster you feel a little sick, or you might actually get sick. But people that really like roller coasters have a great vestibular system because they've challenged it. So vestibular system works best when it is challenged. As a summary, the 3 systems that we use for our balance as dancers are vision, proprioception, and our vestibular system. Now, the vision is the thing that has been trained the most as dancers, and I think I've demonstrated well enough how that can become impaired in practical speaking. When we have choreography and stuff going in front of our face, when we have a spotlight in our face, when we're dealing with dark stages, all of these things impair our vision as dancers, so we need to train so that when we are in those situations of performance, we are ready for it and we don't get injured. A little side story is 20 years ago, I went to a conference for physical therapists that treated Olympians at Colorado Springs. And they had, particularly they were talking about knee injury and the ACLs being blown in like downhill skiers and ice skaters. And they would do all the rehab years ago and have their strength totally normal. They would measure the strength on a computer using a Cybex isokinetic machine in the past, left versus right, non-injured side versus injured. Their strength was perfect, mobility perfect, and they would send them back into their sports and they blow out their knee ligament again. So they stepped back and said, okay, we're missing something major here because strength and range of motion isn't the only thing. What they were missing, these 3 systems. And they would particularly train sport specific for these. Since ice skaters have to balance on a little blade, they not only had them on balls in dark areas and bright areas because that was their performance, They had them on wobble boards and everything else with their skate on because that was the demands of their sport. And so you could get really creative with this, but neglecting balance and proprioception and vestibular system as part of rehabilitation is doing a great disservice to athletes. And so that is something universally adapted now in the field of sports medicine, and especially with dancers. I went to a conference years ago where dancers were taught a little combination, a little petit allegro, and then we turned all the lights out and we all had flashlights and flashed them in their faces. And the people doing the combination had a much harder time. And so those are the type of things that physical therapists are incorporating into rehabilitation to help dancers get back onto stage and performing without the risk of re-injury. So the very least that you can do is start closing your eyes a little bit, not for an entire combination, but say you're balancing Susu fifth. Why not the last couple seconds just close your eyes and see if you can maintain at least like 4 seconds of a Susu in fifth, maintaining balance. How about in a passe balance on demi-point? You have everything perfect, your eyes are glazed over. What if you just close your eyes for a couple seconds? If when you close your eyes, you immediately fall over, that means you really need to work on that because the stage is not a perfect place. And if even outside of the stage, if you perform a balance with your eyes closed as well as with eyes open, your balance will improve. Your balance will improve with your eyes open, okay? So the cross training with eyes closed for balancing in particular on one foot, again, don't try an entire combination with your eyes closed. There are some things you can do with that, maybe with adagio, just for fun on the side. But in the very least, when you're balancing in a static position, just try closing your eyes. That is a super place to start.